Hello YouTube. Bitcoin prices have dropped 10% over the weekend. Prices have dropped down from this triangle formation below the number 3 point of our recent number 123. Prices dropped almost $900, leaving a big gap for the CME futures open. Now we're zooming in on this to see the post-capitulation pattern coming in now, where prices have come down, people have capitulated, and we're getting this post-capitulation pattern. As this builds up and breaks higher from this, it's probably going to coincide perfectly with the futures market opening. Now let's jump into our indicators and see what they're telling us about the price of Bitcoin. At the end of the video, we'll assess how this has affected the altcoins. Here we are with the weekly relative strength index still staying in the long-term uptrend line if we are going into the bull market. And the trickster did the change. Our candle changed from an angle upward to an angle downward with this recent pull back here since our last video. Now that it's angled downward, I really want to pay attention to this holding these levels throughout this next week as the next candle opens. As we go into the daily view, we can see this trend line matched perfectly as that broke on those prices. When we move into the 12-hour time frame, here again is that trend line that broke as this 1, 2, 3 top formation broke. And we can zoom in closer on the 4-hour time frame. Again, we're watching for this trend line to break and the point to either take us either up bullish or down further. And so we can see how important it is to watch these trend lines in the relative strength index, but now it's come to a different point where we are in such an oversold condition here that it is ripe for reversal. So I'm really watching these candles now for reversal patterns. As we zoom in on the relative strength index, we are low and lower still. We don't have a bullish divergence out of this that I was actually expecting. But we're down to some pretty crazy oversold territory here for the 1-hour relative strength index. Really remarkable actually to get down to these levels. Now I'm going to zoom into the 15-minute time frame and I'm still looking for a bullish divergence. I'm just looking for trend line breaks on this to see when do you buy the dip, right? There is a time to buy the dip as prices have come down and they make a 1, 2, 3 formation and the relative strength index gives us that bounce up from a super oversold condition. That could be one of them. Let's zoom into the rest of our indicators. The weekly on balance volume is just showing a little bit of red there. I don't like it. Let's zoom into the daily. We can see this is continuing on into selling. Let's go into the 12-hour and see how this is turning out, because now I want to compare the size of the dump. This dump to that dump, it doesn't seem as strong. Even though we've made a bigger dip down, it doesn't seem that it was as much volume pushing it down. So as we can see, this dip was deeper, but the volume wasn't as deep and it was the beginning of the uptrend. Maybe I'm stretching, but I really want to just observe it. As we're going in now, here's that dip. It was deeper. This was more selling here than what we had here. And if we zoom into the 1-hour time frame to see, well, this got deeper and deeper here. So we haven't seen that this is eased off and that we had a big swoosh of selling and less selling here. That's what I was kind of hoping to see. But let's continue to zoom in. Here we do have the big whoosh and continuous selling going on here. It hasn't switched to continuous buying. So I'm wanting it to turn bullish, of course, but this is not giving me that bullish feel. It still feels like it's sliding off here. And now for the weekly MACD, this is actually getting to a bearish territory. Across to the negative on this weekly MACD would be bearish, and I wasn't wanting it. Here we have more bearish news, with the daily has just flared back to the bearish again instead of crossing to the positive as I was kind of anticipating. As we are moving up, we can flare back and forth. We still can. As we're moving up in the uptrend, it can cross to the negative and give us these dips. It's not bullish. As much as I want to find bullish news in this, these lower lows are not it yet. Now we have a whole new 1, 2, 3 bottom formation to build up from this spot. Now move into the 12-hour time frame. This has crossed to the positive. It was looking kind of good, but now it's crossing to the negative and we're getting the red histogram. So this has got to pull up. Otherwise, we're in worse trouble here. And that candle closes in 2.5 hours. Zoom into the 4-hour time frame. This candle closes in 2 hours and it's pretty bearish. This is not giving us a twist to the positive and catching itself here on this time frame. And here again on the 1-hour time frame, this is still not giving us any kind of bullish divergence here to say that it's going to be turning around right here. Here again, looking into the 15-minute time frame, we've got a cross to the positive, but as this crosses negative again and these histograms pull negative and we're dropping, that won't be supporting any kind of bullish turnaround. Let's go into the Ichimoku and we are looking at more bearish news here in the Ichimoku. It has crossed below the green cloud. We have a twist to the negative, and as our trailing indicator has cut through everything, this is giving us more bearish news right now as we're coming down to these levels. Let's zoom into the closer time frames and see what we get. Daily, we had the cross to the bearish. This is cutting through everything. We've gone through the cloud, so this is all bearish on the daily. The 12-hour was also giving us bearish for days now as we crossed out of this 1, 2, 3 top formation here. Then we've come to a consolidation, and we came to a consolidation here, but no time did we come to a bullish turnaround here. It consolidated a bit, but we are already in the bearish trend here. Now in the 4-hour time frame, as we came up to the inside of this cloud and came back out of it, this happened fast and it turned into a sell signal right out of this cloud here. This was a tough one because it was starting to turn positive. The trailing indicator had cut through everything. This really was starting to set up and look pretty good. But the last episode, when we were on the 1-hour time frame, it was coming right to the top of the cloud. We had the 3 touches of death. It broke out and had the reversal wick, and it turned into a sell signal quickly here on the 1-hour time frame. If you were right on this edge and ready for it, it was there for you, but you had to be ready for it in advance. You have to know what this Ichimoku cloud signal is going to mean to you in advance in the 1-hour time frame. So I want to zoom in on this even more closely now because I'm looking to see how do we tell when to buy the dip. I don't know if it is, but I want to map it out so that we can see. And on the 5-minute time frame, certainly not giving us any kind of turnaround at all. The only thing I can see to stretch it is that we do have a 1, 2, 3 formation here when we're on the 1-minute time frame. Prices have stayed above that. So as we're breaking up and out of this channel, it could give you something. But certainly, if we're breaking down below this channel and below this number 1 point here, that is more sell signal. Now, moving into the Bollinger Bands, this is where the bad news starts. We've crossed below the midline here in the Bollinger Band weekly. That is bearish, and I don't like it. On the daily time frame, I'm watching for the mean reversion anyway. So as we're moving in here, we can see that we've broken down below this level. We had our 1, 2, 3 top formation. It came up below and tested from underneath and broke down below that. And now prices have moved into what might be a mean reversion here on the 12-hour time frame in between the 2nd and 3rd standard deviation. So now I'm really studying this. When we go into the 4-hour time frame, is it a mean reversion or is it the downtrend that's continuing? So I'm really studying what is happening as it's unfolding here. We zoom in now to the 1-hour time frame. It looks weaker. The 15-minute time frame, it's really narrowing. Like the band is very different between the 1 hour, very wide, and the 15-minute, very narrow and easing. So this looks like there's another big move coming, and it doesn't look like it's coming up from everything we've been seeing so far. And here we are into the 5-minute view. We can watch this unfold, and as it does, some of the things I'll be watching are the MACD, but I'll be really watching this volume. And because it's negative all the way along here in the 15-minute views, and it hasn't turned to a positive state of buying volume here, I do expect this is going to be going down further than this right now. And I am disappointed that I wasn't more heavily bearish out of this top formation as it's set up here, especially since we have a 1, 2, 3 top formation that failed here, in a larger 1, 2, 3 top formation that failed there, and we came up underneath it and made a formation where it could top out right at support and resistance levels. I'm disappointed that I wasn't paying more attention to that triangle setting up here. And I did, in a couple places, talk about these two triangles being so similar and then didn't trade for it. That's what's disappointing for me. Now we'll see what goes on. But the trade isn't finished. We are still in the longer term uptrend, And if I bring this all the way back and bring it out to the log pattern, you've seen me do this many times. Let me get rid of that stuff in the background. And I'm going to draw in the long-term trend line along this log pattern. And we've been watching this for a long time here as it's been coming to these levels. Now we're pretty darn close. I don't know, it depends where you draw your trend line. It's always subjective with the trend line. But we are getting to close levels now to pay attention to this, where it could be the bottom, and this could be the dip where you want to buy the dip. And the only way for me to know if it is the dip is to watch for the 1, 2, 3s prove themselves or fail. And every time it fails, I'm going to continue to watch for when it makes the next number 1 point, so that I can be watching the 1, 2, and the potential 3 formation. As it breaks up above that and builds stability, then I'm going to watch these things build out from the 5-minute time frame and build out into the 15-minute time frame and larger. And as it manifests and matches this longer term time frame, then we know that we've hit the 1, 2, 3 that is as important as the 1, 2, 3s that we identified back here and in here. The main thing is that it's going to be after the 12-hour EMAs cross, and so we've got some time now before that's going to happen. Unless we get an absolute crazy blast straight up, we've got a few weeks now or a month or so when that's going to be setting up. My big question is what's going to happen with the altcoins during that time? As Bitcoin does go sideways, we have seen in the past where Bitcoin dominance has dropped drastically as Bitcoin has gone sideways. And in Bitcoin dominance, the main thing I'm watching for is a similar pattern that we saw right here. As prices came back and retested those levels, we saw the 1, 2, 3 top formation. It came back and retested, and it looked terrible at that moment. Then Bitcoin dominance went on its trend right in this period here. And so from January, December until April, we had some really good gains through this period here. So I think that we are now here. We've done this gain, we've done this loss, and now we're creating a bottom formation and a reversal pattern that is going to give us a more steady trend in the altcoins. And I want to see what is going on with Bitcoin in the background. We can see that this was a period that Bitcoin dropped and consolidated and went sideways for a while with a lot of accumulation that went on in Bitcoin through this period. So we went from negative dumping to positive on balance volume for a couple of months here before Bitcoin finally broke out. So we need that 12-hour EMA now to cross over on Bitcoin. And during that time, we should see altcoins go through a pump. And so, in summary, while we are at the relative strength index that's super oversold on the 1-hour time frame, prices are still looking weak below the support and resistance level. When we go on to the on-balance volume, we see that there's steady selling going on here. It hasn't turned around to buying here, even on this 15-minute time frame. When we go into the MACD, we see that we've dipped down, but we're still showing weakness on the 5-minute time frame. In the Ichimoku cloud, we're watching for the potential for a 1, 2, 3 bottom here and prices holding support here. Should we do that and build something above this structure, we could see a bit of a bullish turnaround when the futures market opens and this gap is realized on the futures market. We could see a massive and immediate turnaround without much warning. So really just mapping this out to see if this will actually happen or not. But when we go over to the Bollinger Bands here on the short time frames, we just came out of a narrow neck. It's expanding, and it does look like we're going to get a bigger move downward yet. So we're still just watching this play out to see when eventually that will make a 1, 2, 3 bottom formation, and we'll see where it bounces from there. And as it does, we'll zoom back out to the weekly views and we'll assess how does this relate to a turn from a bullish market from these levels into an overall bearish market for the Bitcoin and for the altcoins. That wraps it up for this episode. High five to everybody who shorted this pattern right there. Fantastic. Let's see what this turns out to in the next few days.